Feds are waiting for documents requested through subpoenas regarding the alleged abuse in the Roman Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. Sit down with a local law professor to talk more about the potential outcome and what the documents might say. It's for today's In Depth. All right, this Tuesday, I'm joined with Eang Ngov with Barry University. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. It's been a while since we've seen you, but welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So we want to go deeper now into this Justice Department announcing the investigation. Basically, what they're looking for are they're using subpoena power. They want subpoenas for certain things. What do they want to look at?
So the Justice Department would like to look for evidence of whether any priests have been moved across state lines, whether kids have been moved across state lines, whether there are any sexual images of kids and the money and assets that are used in this, if they can prove it, criminal enterprise. So it's a broad search right now, and the reason for that is that these evidence that the federal government is looking for seems to mirror the RICO Act, which stands for the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. And so that statute is quite broad, and it touches on obstruction of justice, exploitation of children, witness tampering. And so the pieces of evidence that the federal government is looking into may be potential evidence for RICO action.
Because basically they just want to see if any federal crimes were committed, right?
Exactly, and if it can prove any federal crimes were committed, it can also extend the statute of limitations, which had been an obstacle in the state courts because some priests have passed away during the course of, for instance, Pennsylvania's investigation.
Do you think this could become more widespread than it already is? Because the federal investigation now is, like you said, pretty broad-based.
Yes, I think so. I think that it could expand both statewide and both federal. So after the Pennsylvania report came out, then Pennsylvania issued its report in the summer, a dozen states took action and began its own investigation. And so depending on what we see from those statewide investigations, the federal government may expand. It may even become a nationwide investigation, depending on what it uncovers in Pennsylvania as well. And there's actually been history of a couple of countries that have engaged in nationwide investigations, such as Australia. And that was an in-depth study of 5 years, and it uncovered over 4,000 cases of sexual abuse over almost 60 years. So it depends on what the state and the federal government may unearth during this investigation.
Now, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Eang Ngov with Barry University. We're talking about the in-depth investigation, the federal investigation into the Roman Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. Obviously, that very scathing report showing, hundreds of what was it, 301
priests? Yes, and 301 priests involved in over 1,000 cases of child abuse over the course of 70 years.
Now, one thing that stuck out to me is, this is now on the federal investigators' radar. Not uncommon, though, because typically child sex abuse cases are typically investigated at the state level. So, it's not uncommon. It does happen.
It does happen, and what the federal government has to do in this case is, if it wants to pursue a RICO action, it has to show a pattern of criminal activity, and it's got to show that the church as a whole is a criminal enterprise. So what's interesting in this investigation is it might be pursuing quite a novel theory that the church as an entity is an organized crime group.
And this doesn't necessarily mean the conclusion of the investigation doesn't necessarily mean there will be stiffer charges, extra charges, right? They just want to see if they want to see for themselves if any federal crimes were committed.
Right. So at this stage of the investigation, it's quite a broad investigation, and so it's looking for any and all federal crimes.
Got it.
And as a result, then additional charges may come.
We'll be following it carefully. Eang Ngov with Barry University. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much
Please
for having me.
come back again. We'll see you.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Right.